Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1 just dropped, and things have gone completely off the rails. Secrets are exposed, loyalties are tested, and a brutal twist flips everything we thought we knew about Peacemaker's mission and the people around him. Today on MMX Night, we'll break down exactly what happened in the ending, how it sets up the rest of Season 2, and what it could mean for Peacemaker and his team moving forward. Ready? Let's begin. The wait is finally over. Peacemaker is back with its second season, and James Gunn wastes no time in throwing audiences headfirst into chaos, humor, heartbreak, and multiversal madness. Episode 1 delivers an ending that not only shocks viewers, but also fundamentally changes the path of Christopher Smith's journey, while directly weaving the show into Gunn's larger DCU blueprint. The climax of this first chapter doesn't just leave fans gasping. It plants seeds that could grow into some of the most important storylines in the entire connected universe. The episode begins with Chris Smith, aka Peacemaker, still struggling with the emotional wreckage of Season 1. He is a man burdened by guilt, haunted by his father's death, and still wrestling with the violent contradictions of his peace at any cost philosophy. His attempt at living a somewhat normal life quickly gets interrupted by the introduction of a mysterious piece of technology known as the Quantum Unfolding Chamber. This device, which Chris inherited from his father Augie Smith, is a gateway into something he cannot possibly control, the multiverse. With a simple activation, the chamber opens pathways to as many as 99 different dimensions. What starts as curiosity soon spirals into a nightmare when Chris discovers that in another reality, everything he ever wanted, family, belonging, and respect, actually exists. In this alternate world, his brother Keith never died, his father never became the hateful figure who tormented him, and his other self is not a disgraced killer, but a respected hero, even part of a celebrated superhero group called the Top Trio. For a man as broken as Chris, this vision of what could have been is intoxicating. But Peacemaker being Peacemaker, his encounter with his variant doesn't end in peace, it ends in blood. The confrontation between the two Smiths becomes the heart of the episode and the emotional trigger for everything that follows. The fight itself is brutal, awkward, and strangely tragic. The variant Peacemaker sees Chris as nothing more than an imposter, perhaps even an alien shapeshifter. Suspicion escalates to violence, and in a desperate attempt to save himself, Chris uses the variant's own jetpack against him. The result is shocking. The alternate Peacemaker is impaled and dies instantly. For the audience, it's one of the wildest moments in the show so far, not only because it delivers a jaw-dropping action beat, but because of the symbolism it carries. Chris has already killed his father. He carries the guilt of causing his brother's death. And now, he has killed another version of himself. This ending isn't just shocking for shock's sake. It reflects the series' central theme, the constant war Chris wages within his own identity. From that moment on, the consequences begin to unravel. Killing his variant doesn't just leave Chris traumatized. It also triggers alarms far beyond his understanding. The quantum chamber releases bursts of interdimensional energy, the same kind tied to the infamous Luther incident, referenced in Superman. That connection immediately draws the attention of Argus, who already considered Peacemaker a loose cannon, but now label him a priority-level threat. What makes this even more dangerous is the presence of Rick Flag Sr., who has sworn vengeance on Chris for killing his son in the Suicide Squad. With Argus keeping him under surveillance, Chris is suddenly at the center of a much bigger conflict than he ever imagined. But the episode doesn't just stop at guilt and government surveillance. It also reshapes the DC universe itself. The cameo that ended Season 1, where members of the Justice League briefly appeared, is now retconned to introduce the Justice Gang, Gunn's new heroic lineup for the DCU. This includes David Cornsweat Superman, Millie Alcock Supergirl, Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl. Their presence makes it crystal clear. The DCU is gone, and Gunn's DCU has officially taken over. For Chris, this moment is both inspiring and humiliating. He even attempts to apply to the Justice Gang, hoping that joining them will finally validate him as a true hero, but instead, he is dismissed and ridiculed. Once again, Chris is reminded that no matter how hard he tries, the world refuses to see him as anything more than a joke with a gun and a toilet seat on his head. And that is where the brilliance of James Gunn's storytelling lies. Beneath the vulgar humor and outrageous violence, the show continues to paint Chris as a deeply flawed human being. The ending of Episode 1 is not just about a multiverse twist. It's about confronting the darker reflections of ourselves. Chris literally kills another version of who he could have been, a man with a family, a respected hero, someone who lived the life he always wished for. That act forces him to reckon with the reality that his own worst enemy is not Argus, not Flag Sr., not even the villains who will inevitably show up. His greatest enemy is himself. The fallout of this ending sets the stage for some of the most intriguing conflicts in the season. On one hand, Chris may find himself tempted to step into the shoes of the variant he killed. Could he actually impersonate the other Peacemaker in the alternate reality, attempting to live out the life he believes he deserves? On the other hand, every time he uses the chamber, he risks destabilizing dimensions and drawing more attention from Argus. The government sees him as a walking disaster waiting to happen, and with his history of reckless choices, they might not be entirely wrong. But beyond the politics and the sci-fi spectacle, the emotional core of the episode remains Chris' endless struggle for redemption. He is a man desperate to prove he can be more than the monster he sees in the mirror. Killing his variant doesn't give him closure, it deepens his wounds. It gives him another reason to hate himself, another trauma to bury under jokes, violence, and heavy metal tracks. By the time the credits roll, it's clear that Season 2 is not interested in repeating the formula of Season 1. This is bigger, darker, and more interconnected with the larger DCU. The introduction of the Justice Gang, the Argus threat, the multiversal chamber, and Rick Flag Sr.'s vendetta all collide into a storm that promises to push Chris to his breaking point. Episode 1 closes with the image of a man who has killed his own reflection, a man who is both more powerful and more broken than ever before. The message is undeniable. Peacemaker's journey is no longer just about proving he can be a hero. It's about surviving himself, surviving a world that fears him, and navigating a universe that is bigger and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Episode 1's ending is shocking, yes, but it's also the perfect way to remind us that James Gunn's DCU isn't just about gods and legends. It's about flawed humans stumbling through impossible circumstances, often with blood on their hands. And for Chris Smith, the blood on his hands has never felt heavier. And that's where Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1 leaves us, with chaos, betrayal, and a setup that promises an explosive season ahead. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one. Peace.